One-turn meal recipes with Xnick. Hello dear viewers, welcome back. I have a project that I wanted to do for some time now. It's about trying to mill our opponent with the cards in a single turn. It's an idea inspired by one of our viewers in the comments, and well, I was thinking how to do this. Well, turns out it is possible, but the games are not very amusing to watch, so I decided to go just against the AI, record those and speed up all the process and just probably skip to the part of the milling when it happens, but we are going to see the full games and it at 10 times speed, I guess. That's their setting. And well, the rules here are going to be, we need to make a deck with 60 cards from Magic Duels, the whole set, the whole pool of cards from Magic Duels. We want to be able to mill up to 60 cards or even more in a single turn. Some preparations might be required. Of course, we could try to get all the cards in our hand and all the mana set up and play all the cards in the same turn, but that could be pretty boring to achieve, and I don't think it's too interesting. So we can admit, or a bit of preparation is not going to hurt so much. And finally, we don't want to be relying on luck, because we could attempt to do the one-turn meal by relying on drawing some specific cards, but I think that's playing with the odds. Don't like the idea. So my recipes are going to definitely mill the opponent no matter what. So let's see how it goes. Today we are going to see 3 recipes, and I have recorded a lot more, so sometime in the future we're going to be looking at more chapters, yes. So hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a comment or anything that you want to, and let's go to our games soon. It's going to be using the Sphinx's Tutelage. It's a very strong card that can be used in many ways to mill the opponent, but actually I don't like this card because I have seen it too much already and it's not too creative. You slam this enchantment and then the rest of the game you just try to draw many cards and do not die to what the opponent is doing. But we want to do in this game is to mill our opponent in a single turn, so we're going to be using 3 copies of this Sphinx Tutelage, and then we just try to draw 10 cards that will mill the opponent for at least 60 cards, maybe more if the Sphinx can be recast. So it also triggers itself. So in this game we assembled a blue deck, trying to set up lots of things. So we have the commit to memory in the graveyard, so we make sure that the opponent has all the cards back from the library before playing the combo. Then we just play the 3 enchantments, and in one single turn we draw 10 cards. So if we play memory, we are already drawing 3 cards. Then we can use some other stuff, from instance the Scholar. We can use Alchemist Vials. We can set up lots of stuff that we can use to draw, but remember that using memory also resets our hand, so we have to be careful because we are not sure that we get our cards back. So here the idea is to try to use our Espresso to return some Alchemist Vials to our hand, find all our cards. We almost mill ourselves by doing this play. but next turn we should be able to do things and stuff, and the life total is never a worry if we are trying to do this, but sometimes it is better to try to block the opponent. Here goes the opponent's mind instead of ours. And memory. So Forgotten Creation, also a possibility instead of the mind, but at this stage of the game we could mill ourselves if we use the Forgotten Creation. So we are going to be relying on the clues, the Reckless Scholars, and if we have spare mana we can also activate the Sphinx Tutelage to draw more. So that could be another interesting option to go here. And finally, choose not there. If we choose yes, we lose the game. Well, not really lose, but we still have to activate memory. There we go. A lot of mana, but here we don't care too much. We have plenty of mana to spare. And lots of milling is going on. So since we just draw 7 cards, there are 21 activations for the Sphinx's Tutelage, not to mention that if we mill 2 cards that share a color, then the Sphinx activates again. But suppose that we do not land of that, we can also use these things that we have left on our board. We can even force the opponent to draw a card that gives us the victory, but just to show the ability here, we're going to trigger the Sphinxes without playing cards from our hand. That's kind of the point of this deck. So we do not need to draw anything. Of course, many of our cards can be used to draw more cards, but I did not want to run into chances. So imagine that we draw just lands. So that's the idea here. Chun, 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 chun. And we pass the turn, and there goes the mill. So the game is pretty slow. That's the reason for me to speed up this. I don't think the game is too interesting. Okay, this is now the recipe for milling with Jace's Emblem. Whenever you cast a spell, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of her library into his or her graveyard. So if we can play 12 cards, then we mill for 60 and we win the game, most likely. So this is a pretty challenging recipe because we have to first get the Jace's Emblem. So we begin by finding Jace in our deck, having 5 cards in our library by the time we activate Jace, so he turns into Planeswalker. We gather enough loyalty counters to cast the emblem, that is 9 loyalty counters, which is not that easy to get, so we are cheating a bit here and using some cards to gain additional counters faster than just activating the abilities. And then once we get the emblem, we have to be able to play 12 cards in the same turn. But since I do not want to depend on drawing cards that draw more cards, we are setting up some artifacts that we can play without paying mana, and therefore we can use this idea to mill our opponent. So here the game is doesn't have many things that are not notable here. The only thing is that this deck I had to try a few times because the AI decks runs some counter spells and creature removal, so our Jace is an easy target for any removal or counter spell. So there we go. So here we see the Quarry Camel assisting us on getting the loyalty counters. So now we have found the emblem, and using some of our artifacts we put cards directly from the library into our battlefield. Then we have Metalwork Colossus in the graveyard. We can activate his ability to sacrifice 2 artifacts and bring back the Metalwork Colossus back to our hand. Then, since we have lots of artifacts, we can play Metalwork Colossus without paying mana, or I mean the cost of the Metalwork Colossus is now 0. Then we have enough mana to play the Assistant, because we have some Foundry console. Now, well, in this iteration I did not have the consoles, but that's another way to play this. So we can reduce our Foundry Inspector. Foundry Inspector can be used to reduce even more the costs of our artifacts. But here the key is the Walking Ballista, that we can play with X equals 0 as many times as we need to. So we play 1 Metalwork Colossus, sacrifice them right away using the Colossus in the graveyard. That means it comes back to our hand, and then we have a nice loop going on. We can actually play infinitely many cards doing this, but the point here is to mill the opponent, and we repeat the process until the opponent's library is depleted. There we go. So nice artifact combination. It can be used in some different ways here, so if you ever need to play infinitely many cards, you can try to do this trick too. Here the Walking Ballista goes straight to the graveyard, so we need to have some artifact some artifact must be on the battlefield. So if we have the Foundry Inspector, then we can place some artifact to stand up there, but here we have enough mana to play Renegade Map or something else. So just to show up, I keep playing more and more cards. In case that we have not already milled the opponent, we can keep going and going. And I guess there's a final activation available here. I don't remember. I recorded this a long time ago. There we go. And that's it. We can play Walking Ballista here. Yeah. Still goes. Yes, we can do a couple more activations. Yeah, probably the Cultivator's Caravan is one of my favorite, and I think I did a mistake here. I sacrificed the Planar Bridge, which if I did not, then I could play an additional Metalwork Colossus. No, Planar Bridge, no, it costs 6. Now we are left with the Skyship Sovereign and the Tabijos Journal, that together adds to 10 mana, so our Metalwork Colossus costs us 1 mana to cast. So there we are missing one more activation, but now we just pass the turn and win the game. Finally, we have the Paramnesia mill for our last recipe of this episode or chapter. So this is an enchantment that has pay 1 blue, sacrifice the Vessel of Paramnesia, target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, draw a card. So what's the plan here? To trigger this Vessel of Paramnesia 20 times. So how are we going to do that? That's not as easy as it sounds. So first we are going to be relying on the Tamillo's emblem, so we can play our cards without paying mana cost. That's the most important aspect of the deck. I don't know if we can replace that with something else. Then we are going to be using graveyard recursion to bring back the enchantment from the graveyard. So we have Renegade Rallier and the Green Guardian of Murasa, and this some flicker effects with displays that can make our creatures leave the battlefield and return, so we can do that. But since the Vessel of Paramnesia needs 1 blue to be sacrificed, we have to pay 1 mana. We also need to save 20 blue mana for activate our vessels. So where are we going to find 20 blue mana to do that? Well, here we are going to do a trick to have infinite mana. It's really a pain to do this, but we can get there by using Cultivator's Caravan, Displays, and the Green Guardian of Murasa, and the Tamillo's Journal. So let's see how it goes. Oh, this deck is so slow. Right. We flicker the Green Guardian of Murasa. When the Green Guardian returns, we pick up the displays from the graveyard. Then we tap the Cultivator's Caravan. Then we crew Cultivator's Caravan. We can use the Green Guardian of Murasa to do the crew or any other creature that we have untapped. And then we repeat, and we slowly get to gather the required mana, and we eventually can get infinitely many mana by doing this as long as we want. But here I'm going to stop at 20 mana. Come on, hurry up. This is a 10 times speed because there's many room for mistakes here, but okay, we have 2 vessels on the battlefield, and now begins the milling process, which is pretty similar. So first we must play, first we should sacrifice these vessels. There are 2 already, but it doesn't matter. Sacrifice Vessel of Paramnesia. There we go. 3 cards down the drain. And now we can play Renegade Rallier without paying mana thanks to Tamillo's Journal. Tamillo's Emblem. And we are going to keep activating the Vessel of Paramnesia. Now displays Green Guardian and Renegade Rallier. Renegade Rallier brings back the Vessel Strike to the battlefield. It's not really necessary, but speeds up this process because otherwise it would be pretty slow to do this. One important aspect here is that the activation of the Vessel of Paramnesia also draws us a card, so we have to watch out not milling ourselves by doing this. But in this game we are at not risk of doing this, but we end up with a large hand because we are going to be drawing 20 cards by doing this, and also bringing back cards from the graveyard, so we are not spending cards from our hand. So I sure wish the game was faster, but okay. Almost done. Please hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. So I hope you like these recipes ideas, and on our next episode we're going to look at some variations of these themes and look at some other cards. I don't want to look at every possible way to mill the opponents, but I hope that you find the variety appealing, and please let me know if you have any suggestions. Until next time, sayonara!